Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome back, everyone, to another discussion in this course on modern financial transactions. So today we're going to talk about a type of mudaraba, a type of profit sharing venture, but that it is a combined profit sharing venture. Or al-murabaha al-mushtarika. And as you can see already by my hand gestures, that this is a combination. So a lot of the transactions, the new transactions that we're talking about, and they're new transactions. When I say the word new, by the way, I know we're like almost towards the end, but I should have said this in the beginning. New from the point of view of classical fiqh. They're not new from the point of view of modern transactions. Most of you that are watching this, this is probably the only thing you know as far as a transaction. But if you go back and you look at, we did the transactions over two courses, you'll see that, well, the kind of things that we're talking about in the modern world, they're more complex. Complex by the meaning of the word, that they're put together. So there are different components that are put together. Now, we've already talked about the difference of opinion in Islamic law about combining transactions. So I don't need to keep repeating that. We're taking the Hanafi position and some of the other ijtihadi positions that's permissible. So we don't need to keep repeating that. But basically what's happening is you're giving your money to the bank, and the bank is investing that money. And so the bank is like a third party or a midway point, not a third party, a midway point, and then takes that pool of money and then it funds like some mega infrastructure, like a bridge or a highway or a hospital or something like that. That's mudaraba, but on steroids, or that's a huge project. Usually the mudaraba in the fiqh is I have like 100 dinars, I give it to you, go to the marketplace, you trade it, and you come back. And that's fine from the point of view of understanding the basics. It doesn't mean that I can't have 1,000,000 dinars and it's a bigger project. But here the issue is, number one, the bank is pooling all of our money, so it's thousands, tens of thousands of people's money, so it has a huge pool of money, and then it's now going to go invest that in these infrastructure projects, and then when there's a liquidation of that project, that's how the mudaraba transaction is. It's supposed to pass around the money to the people that own it. So that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to get into the details and obviously we allow this transaction, but I need to walk you through why and how. So we'll begin the discussion in the next clip, inshallah. All right, Bismillah. I lost my page, one second. Okay, so with the basic mudaraba in Islamic law, I have money and you have know-how. I give you the money and you go work with your know-how, and then we split the profits. That's the basic idea. And then if there's losses, I take the loss, unless you mess things up and you like go home and like burn the money or something like that, in which there are damages. But let's just talk about the basic structure. So without any dispute, by consensus, by ijma', this is a permissible transaction. Obviously, it's the way the world works. And as we've said before, Islam is very pro-profit, pro-markets, Islamic law that is. So we have no problem with people making money and the movement of money and the cycle of money and things like that. We have no problem with that. But we have some parameters, of course, dictated by divine law, that we need to make sure that we are abiding by. Now, the issue with this modern transaction is that now we have this idea of a bank. So in this lecture, I'm going to talk only about the Islamic bank. I'm not talking about the conventional bank. Well, maybe I should mention something about the conventional bank. Conventional bank, what I just said in the introductory clip, is exactly what the conventional bank is doing. It's taking all of our money and it's pooling all of that money, leveraging that money by investing it in not one project, but multiple projects. And that's why the bank, when you go to the bank, you think of like the teller at the bank. That's just the entry point. The bank, like corporate bank, they have a huge staff, an army of people, literally an army of people whose job is to analyze the markets, invest in emerging markets, invest in commodities, so on, in a whole diverse portfolio, such that mathematically, given like the end of time cataclysmic event, what we call act of God, short of that, which you can't plan for, but mathematically, the whole pool of money should make money. And they determine, how much they're going to give you back, and that's the interest that you get on your bank. I understand that if you follow some of the modern fuqaha's positions that bank interest is haram, etc., I can understand why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about. However, I do want to also flag for you the other opinion that there's nothing wrong with that form and that interest that you get on that money, according to that opinion, following the argument of Imam Shafi'i. It's not ribawi. So what we're going to talk about, if you're familiar with modern conventional banking, what we're going to talk about in this lecture will almost carbon copy look exactly like the one in the other conventional bank, but some of the names have changed. And as I said in yesterday's lecture and the lectures before, those names matter because those names mean certain things and conjure up in the mind of the faqih background. So I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging, but I need you to understand that there is a difference of opinion. Anyway, so let's look at the Islamic bank for the rest of today's lecture. The Islamic bank is going to take your deposits. So you're going to deposit your money in the Islamic bank. Now, for a bank to be viable, of course, it has to be, we said, authorized by the state. So there's a license for the bank to do what it's doing, and there have to be some guarantees. We'll come to that at the end of the lecture. How does the bank guarantee that it's not going to lose your money? There's a difference of opinion about how we do that. In the United States, for example, it's very, you go to the bank and it's like FDIC insured, the federal, some debt, is it? Astaghfirullah, I even forgot what it stands for. Insurance company, sorry, FDI, Federal something insurance company. And I even know the building is in Washington next to the train station. When I go to the train station in DC, I always see the bill FDIC. Anyway, it's FDIC insured, which means that the federal government of the United States guarantees your deposits. I think it's up to $100,000. That's one form. So invented, or created rather, a company to do that. That's basically, I said I'm going to talk about this at the end, but I'm talking about it now. We'll come back to it, but that's basically the modern fiqh position, is we'll create a modern company that's exterior to the bank that will be like a takaful, like a, joint protection of society, the way we talked about insurance to protect your money. We'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, the point is that because the bank is authorized and it's going to protect your money, we believe, we go and we deposit the money. So it's just like in the textbook classical fiqh, murabaha, I always want to say marhaba, murabaha, not murahaba, murabaha, where you're going to give the money to the know-how person. I have the money, but I don't have the time or the know-how to invest it. You invest it for me by buying some stuff, which is what Lady Khadija alayha salam did with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when he used to go to the Sham and trade on her behalf. So basically the bank is doing the same thing. You put your money in the bank. Don't think that your money goes in a drawer with your name on it, and then when you come back they're going to open the drawer and give you the same. That's a safety deposit box. That's not what the bank is doing with your money. The money is deposited in your bank, your income, your savings. You sell an asset, you put the money in the bank. The bank's not going to just sit there and wait for you to come. The bank is going to take all of that money with tens of thousands of customers, so it has tens of, not hundreds of millions of liquid cash at that point. They're going to take that money and invest it. Why? Because society needs that to happen. You can't, how do you invest dams and bridges and infrastructure and airports and hospitals and things like that? So rather than taking a loan from the World Bank or the IMF or some kind of international fund, it's better that the people do it themselves. We build our own country and town, whatnot. So we are in the murabaha sphere, but the issue is it's not one-to-one, because first of all, it's a pool of money. That's one challenge in fiqh. And then the bank is actually not doing the know-how. The bank is able to study and direct the money to these different projects. So also, I don't want you to think that the Islamic bank is funding one project. So that's also very naive if we think that. The Islamic bank, like any bank, is going to invest in as many projects that it can, with the laws of how much, the ratio of how much money they have to keep on hand, liquid in the bank, to give to its customers versus how much they can leverage. There's a specific economic term for that. I can't remember the term at this time being, but you can look it up easily. And there are different, it's dictated by law. And unfortunately, most banks abuse that and go beyond the law. It's another issue altogether. But so anyway, some of the, let's say, I'm making it up, but let's say 10-15% of our money is actually physically in the bank. The rest of the money is being invested, which is why a run on the bank can cause a collapse of the financial system. And that's why there's always these bank holiday, time out, we're going to close the markets. The government's going to come in like, it's okay, everyone relax, okay, here's some stimulus money. like during Corona and stuff like that. We're going to relieve some of the debt payments because we don't. If everyone goes to the bank to get their money, they're not going to be able to get it. The bank will collapse, and the government might collapse or the financial sector might collapse. So the bank is pooling money. That's one issue. The bank is actually not doing the work. So it's not like you have the know-how. You go to the market, buy and sell the way the Prophet ﷺ did for Lady Khadija alayhi salam. But rather the bank is going to look at all of those sectors. So it has experts on the inside that are sitting studying the markets. And okay, we're going to put 10 million here, 15 million here, a couple million here, so on and so forth. Now the problem with that is, well, now we've added another party. So it's a multiple murabaha. And then the issue is like, what happens when the project is liquidated and the financial event happens where the bank receives a return on the investment? Well, the problem is all of these different projects have a different timeline. One project might be short, project might be nice and neat in a year. Most projects, surprise, are very complicated and take 5, 7, maybe 10 years. And therefore, there are multiple financial events that happen. If it's a 10-year project, you can't wait 10 years to get your money. There is a cap in which the money is vested, and then after that, a cap of years, and then you can start to draw down on that money. So then, does the financial incident of the liquidation mean that the Islamic bank has to, like in the traditional murabaha contract, spread the money to its people? Or can it wait? Can it give a little bit, reinvest? Those are some of the issues that need to be discussed in this issue. Now, as a customer in the bank, you receive payments. The conventional banks, we call it interest. I don't know what the term is in the Islamic bank, but you're going to receive money. It may even be called ribh, murabaha. You're going to receive money every year. So that means that what it does not mean is that the project is over and this is it, because you keep getting it every month on your account, or you get it maybe every quarter or every year. So therefore, on the back end, behind the scenes, how is the Islamic bank doing that, and what of the opinions of the fiqh allow that to take place? Now, from the fiqh point of view, I'm running out of time, but I'll pick it up whenever the timer stops. From the fiqh point of view, the murabaha is a permissible transaction, as I said, by consensus. But there are things in this complex version of murabaha that need to be unpacked, and we're going to take them step by step. I guess I'll do that in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, so in the modern Islamic banking multiple or complex murabaha transaction, what's happening? Okay, well, I don't want to repeat that. Let me just go to the next section of the notes. 1 second. I'm sorry, guys. So the basic structure that we're looking at is the Islamic bank is now injecting itself in the classical murabaha transaction as a new party. It's actually, we call it a third party, but it's really in between you and the know-how. Number two is that the money is pooled together from multiple people. So it's not just you and the expert, it's a lot of us, the bank, and then the people of the know-how. There is some type of calculation that the bank is going to do about when and how to liquidate from the projects so that it can give you your money back. Number four is that there has to be a guarantee that the bank is not going to lose your capital. That has to be insured in some way, which obviously creates a fiqh problem. And then some of the companies that the bank invests in will fail or will pull out of the murabaha contract. Like the bank is giving it to 50 projects, maybe 2 or 3 of them don't continue for whatever reason. So what does that mean for us? Okay. As we said, the basic idea of the murabaha is that there's consensus that it's a permissible transaction. So it's not like the salam transaction where some madhahib allow it and some don't. This is something that's universally accepted. Um, now, can you add a second or third or fourth party? This is where there's a difference of opinion. The Hanafis and the Hanbalis allow it because their argument is when you give the money to the know-how person, the expert, the person that's going to work the money, there is a basic tafweed. You have given him wakala, you have given him, you have deputized them to act on your money. Like the Prophet ﷺ took Lady Khadija's money ﷺ to Shem, products, he sold them, got cash, bought more things, sold them, made more money. So he had extra tasarrufat, right? He had extra transactions. No one said, well, she was very happy, alayhi salam. This was before they were married. She was very happy with that. Well, why? Because, he made her more money. That was the whole point. So the idea is that I give you the money, I give it to you because you have the know-how. So the bank is going to know how to invest. We have no way as individuals helping build this bridge or dam or hospital or airport. There's no way that you can do that. And, even if you thought you knew how would you actually transact the money? You have no way of transacting the money. You have to have the bank. So basically, the Hanafis and the Hanbalis say this is the urf of the tujjar. This is the custom of what happens in trade. You got to give that person in the traditional murabaha transaction. You got to give that person space to do what they do. Sometimes they call it the sausage factory in English. Like you don't want to necessarily know the details. Trade can be, there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and if you're sitting there and looking if you're like an academic like me and you're sitting there in the marketplace, we don't do that, because you're thinking in like idealistic terms, and the trader will just be quiet. Let me handle it. And at the end of the day, you see the result of it, for example. So the Hanafis and the Hanbalis allow that. And of course the Malikis and the Shafi'is have a difference of opinion, saying that that can only happen if there's a specific permission. So in that case, which is a little too idealistic, I would say, because sometimes I'm in business, so I kind of see that. It's a little too idealistic. Every time the person that's working your money wants to do something, he has to come back and ask your permission. That's what the Malikis and Shafi'is are saying. So of course, this can easily be solved through contract. It can stipulate in the contract that you deputize, the guy or the bank to do these type of things, and that you can actually solve or often you can find a way contractually to check the boxes, so you don't have to choose one madhab or another. But if we were pushed, we were just going to choose the Hanafi and the Hanbalis because it's more realistic. When I say it's more realistic, it's not to be disparaging of our own madhab or the Maliki madhab. It's just it's more realistic, as they said. This is the urf, this is the custom of how business happens. So the Shafi'is, for example, our madhab is very first principle. That's the wrong word. It's very textual and following the text and safer. But when you come maybe on an individual level, we can say the Shafi'i opinion is better. But when we're talking about the bank, the bank is not going to come back. The bank doesn't know who you are. You're just a number on a screen. Okay, so in this issue, we're going to take the first position, that it's permissible for the bank to make those decisions on your behalf. Pooling the money together. Sorry, sometimes I got to read, and even though I prepared, sometimes I got to read. The Shafi'is allow the pooling of money together, given that there's permission again. The Hanafis, obviously, and the Malikis, or the Hanafis, usually when it comes to, they're more liberal here. They allow the pooling of the money. So this is one where we have space to choose that opinion. Either through a direct permission or a general power of attorney to the bank to deal with your money. Now, when you invest money, you will get the investor or the investment company will ask your permission. They'll sit with you like, how do you want to invest your portfolio? What do you want to do? Do you want to invest it in this kind of? So there is actually direct permission when it comes to like investment, people that are in, extra type of investments. But here we're talking about Islamic banks. Yani the bank that you use, the card that's in your pocket, the bank that you use to buy things and your salary comes there, your stipend or whatever, your grant money, what it's going to go. We're talking about that model. That bank, they're not going to ask you your permission. So in opening the bank account, you have like a huge document that has all these legalese and maybe it's like 10, 15 pages, you got to sign it all. That's what's in those documents, is that you're giving them permission to do that. And I've read some of those documents. Sometimes you wait at the bank forever, so you have nothing to do. So you read those documents. And I mean, I haven't read it like at a PhD level, but I do remember seeing that you're giving them permission. So the Islamic banks solve this problem by having you agree, a general agreement that you give them the permission to invest the money, and these are the conditions. And probably what's going to happen is that most Islamic banks will reference pieces of law, national law in which the jurisdiction that they're in, according to law such and such, such and such, we can do this and we can do that. And of course, there might be limits on how much money you need in your account for this to be permissible. So not all the money, if you have like just a few $100s and you're just a student and you have like a savings account, probably that money is not going to be invested because there's not going to be a return on it. How do you know if the money is invested? Well, if there's a return on that money, then you know that money is being invested. So so far in this middle clip, this lecture, what we've talked about is the permissibility of entering the bank as a third party. Technically, it's not a third party as much. It is a third party, but it is a wasit. It's a middleman between you and the companies that are going to be invested. So we talked about, yes, the Hanafis generally and some of the Malikis allow, the Hanafis and the Hanbalis allow this because this is the urf of the tujjar. This is in the custom of trade and commerce, is that you have to give them the permission. The Shafi'is and the Malikis will say there has to be specific permission. So either there's a specific permission, which they're going to come back to you on certain trades, or you're going to sign a contract that allows the whole thing. And then the second issue that we're trying to solve is the idea of pooling your money, because in the traditional murabaha transaction, you're not pooling your money. It's just you and a person that has know-how. And we're going to say no, that this is permissible to pool the money, because then you can do more with the money. And then in the next clip, we'll talk about some of the other pieces of the transaction and wrap this up. So stay tuned, inshallah. Okay, let's see in this last clip, what do we need to talk about? التنضيد. التنضيد, it's a difficult Arabic word. Ta, nun, dad, ya, dad. التنضيد is what I'm translating as financial event. I think that's the term that they use in investment, which is basically the liquidation, or when the profits manifest in the transaction. So in the traditional murabaha, I give you 100 dinars, you're going to go to the market, you're going to buy some cloth and this and that with the money I gave you. Then you're going to go to another market and you're going to sell it, and then you're going to come back. And once you sell it and you get the money, that's a tamdeed al-mal, nad al-mal. So it's the asset has now been liquidated into, it's not a Terminator movie, but it's been liquidated and it's been turned into cash, into money. Now you're going to come back to me and we're going to split the profits. So the financial event, that's the key. That's the whole reason why you're doing it. And then based on this is when the Islamic bank, is going to give us our money back, and it's going to show us in our account, which in the conventional bank would be like the interest on that. So this is a part of the traditional fiqh, part of the inherited fiqh, al-fiqh al-mawruth. And how does the bank going to deal that? Because I said, I think it was in the first clip, the bank is not investing in just one project. It's investing in hundreds of projects, small, medium, and large. And for the bank to invest in those projects, by the way, it's also dictated by law. So there are things that the bank cannot invest in. So the bank cannot invest necessarily like as an angel investor, like in a startup, because that has a high risk of failing. So there are rules and parameters dictated by law and then dictated by the internal governance of each bank of what the bank can invest in. So the bank is only going to invest in the most conservative of things. That's why you don't put $1,000 in the bank and then a year later it becomes $50,000. I mean, it does. You're going to get a couple bucks, very conservative amount of return. Why? Because it's investing in super secure projects. When I say super secure projects, usually projects that are at the sovereign level, so projects of the government, of the state. So the bank is investing in a project that the government itself is going to guarantee, call it sovereign guarantee. So roads, highways, dams, water plants, hospitals, airports, these are things that the state needs. It needs money for it, so it's going to bring the bank. So when you think about it, it's not just you, the bank, and the investment. It's you, the bank, and then the bank, when it invests, there's another transaction between the bank and the investment that often involves multiple parties. So even though I'm trying to make it simple that it's three people, three parties, it's not really three parties. There are much more than that. And for the bank to be allowing itself to put huge amounts of capital into these projects, it needs what is called a sovereign guarantee, that the government is going to, yes, we authorize this construction company to build a road here or to expand a road here, or we authorize this hospital to be built. So, you can't do that individually. Only the government has to guarantee that. And the sovereign guarantee type of transaction is what attracts big international, multinational companies, other governments that want to fund it, sovereign wealth funds of other nations that invest. It's sort of at that level. So as an individual person, you don't have any access to that except through the system that we're talking about. Anyway, so the liquidation of the money, right? Where am I? That's important. So in the classical vision of the murabaha, I give you the money, you go to the market, you convert that money into something, into things, into assets, you buy stuff, you sell that stuff, you make money, hopefully. Once you make money, you're going to come back and we're going to split the profits. That last part is difficult in the Islamic bank. When is the actual liquidation or financial event? The problem is that, as I said, these projects are not on. If the bank is investing in dozens and hundreds of projects, then that of all sorts of size, they're all in a different time scale. Remember when we talked about zakah, and we said the hawl, each person's hawl, zakatable year, starts when they are in possession of the nisab, the minimal zakatable amount of money. So each one of us has our own zakah schedule. It was the same thing when the bank is investing. There every month, every quarter, money is going in, out, in and out, in and out. So this becomes a little bit of a challenge because there's not one very simple financial event that we can then end the relationship. And in addition, when the bank gets money, it's going to reinvest it. So it got money from project one, it's going to put more in project two. So this one lost a little bit, we need to invest or we need to pull out, cut our losses. So a lot is happening behind the scenes. So the question is, can the bank regulate that by putting us on a schedule in which we receive some of the money? Of course, the answer we're going to say is yes, but we want to walk through the issue of that. Some of this is based on the principle, this is an usuli principle, إِذَا ضَاقَ الْأَمْرِ اتَّسَعَ. When an issue becomes very narrow, then automatically becomes expansive. So it's impossible to do that. So we're going to be based on that usuli principle. Okay, you can put us on like a quarterly or yearly schedule. In addition to some of the positions of the Hanbali school allow that the financial event to be spread out in that way. And then the last thing we need to talk about is guarantee, insurance. There's got to be some kind of insurance of your capital, right? If you feel like your money can be lost and it's the wild, wild west, no one's going to deposit their money in the bank at all. There are different versions of this. the version that the modern Islamic banking is going to go with. I mean, Ibn Rushd had an opinion that there's a way to guarantee the money, that the person who takes the money has to guarantee against damages, so the concept of the guarantee exists. But the going opinion that the modern Islamic banking and the fiqh councils have gone with is that we're going to have what we call Sanduq al-Ta'min al-Islami. We're going to have a fund for Islamic insurance, which is taken from our discussion on insurance of a takaful al-ijtima'i. It's a way of having a communal good to protect our assets, which is completely permissible, and that will be a fourth party, I guess, if it's you, the bank, and the investment. So now there's a fourth party that's going to guarantee the money. One option that I didn't mention is that in the contract between you and the bank gifts as a hiba, it gifts you the guarantee of the money to separate from those opinions that say you can't give the money to the person and then the person also guarantees you the money. But because that's a little bit sloppy, the cleaner way is just to have this insurance company, basically Islamic insurance company, that will guarantee it. Okay, what's the last thing he has here? Now, about taking your money out of the transaction. Of course, you can pull your money out of the bank anytime you want. That's the point of depositing it. The bank can't hold it for you. So there's a little bit of detail here about if you take your money out. Let's say it's like you put your money in an account that the money has to stay in the account for a certain amount of time for you to get the money out. So it depends on the rules of the account. If it's just a regular checking account, you're going to put your money and take it out whenever you want, and then therefore maybe your ribh, your profit, will be a lot less. But if you violate the rules laid out by the bank of investing, keeping the money deposited for a certain amount of time, you might forfeit your profits because you didn't fulfill your obligations. So these are the main things. Now at the end of it, you see that it's almost similar to the discussion we had on the conventional, or what I said in the first clip about the conventional banking. And it is, I mean, it's the same, but it's important that we go through the mechanics of it and we look at each step and we give it its proper names. A lot of this has to do with names, by the way. So if you were to critique the issue is a lot of the problems can be sorted out if we just name things the right thing from the get-go, because then what those names mean certain things in the Islamic legal norms. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, in today's class we talked about the multiple murabaha in which you are giving the money to the bank, Islamic bank. The Islamic bank is then investing that money and then giving you a return on that money. Of course, murabaha, profit sharing in the Sharia, is something that's universally accepted by the madahib, so there's no difference of opinion. It's an issue of consensus. It's one of the things that Islamic law gives us and Allah Ta'ala has made facilitated for us, and indeed borne out from the beautiful example of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. However, the issue for us to discuss today is the multiplicity part of it, the complex part of it, because it's not you giving somebody money and then them trading and bringing you the profits back. It's you putting the money in the bank, all of us putting the money in the bank. So there's multiple people, so there's a pool of money. The bank is not the person or the agent that's actually going to use the money. It's going to invest that money. So the bank is a middleman between you and the investment. And then furthermore, the bank is not investing in one project, but it's investing in many, many projects, small, medium, and large. So the issue is, we said, yes, you can pool the money. There's permissibility for that in the Sharia. There's permissibility for you to have a third party and to deputize the person you give the money to do what they think is best for the money. We also said that on the financial event or the liquidation of a certain investment, it's permissible to estimate and to put it on a schedule of payment according to some of the positions. and like the Hanbalis. And then we also said that when it comes to the guarantee of your money, to your capital that you put in, the way that the Islamic banks have solved that is to create these Islamic insurance companies, which is, you can link back to our discussion on insurance and looking at it from a takaful al-ijtima'i as a way of communal good. And then therefore the money is guaranteed, your money is guaranteed. If your money was not guaranteed, if our money was not guaranteed, we wouldn't have put it in the bank in the first place. We would find a bank that guarantees it. So all of this is hinged on or anchored on that your capital is not going to be lost. All of that behind the scenes is based on that the bank as an institution is licensed by the state to do that, guaranteed by the state to do that, authorized and governed. So the bank has rules of, it can't just invest in any, you can't just have, I'm going to build a flying car and go to the bank and they're going to give you $10 million. It's never going to happen. So the bank has rules in what it can invest in, and it usually invests in super conservative things. And those are the main topics that we talked about. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.